What's up, everybody? It's Alan's Movie Talk, back at it again. Just got back from seeing Kraven the Hunter, so let's talk about it. Anyone who knows me or watched my review of Venom 3 knows that I am not a fan whatsoever, really, of this Sony Spider-Man-less Spider-Man villain universe that they have created. To me, these are just wholly unnecessary films. They're films that have been chopped and edited to pieces each time, and they're films that have great casts and great actors and great people involved that just somehow seem to never work out. And Kraven the Hunter is no different. I feel like there was a lot of good actors attached to this. Aaron Taylor Johnson, Russell Crowe. But for some reason, Sony can never make a even good movie in this universe. And now that they've announced that this is the last film in this Sony Spider-Man-less universe, I just don't understand what we've been doing all this time, and don't really understand the purpose in any of these movies. So if you couldn't tell from that long-winded start off, I was not a fan of Kraven the Hunter whatsoever. But before I start to delve into what I didn't like about it, I figured I would talk about at least a couple of things that I didn't think were terrible or unwatchable. So the first thing I want to talk about, like I said, there are talented people involved in these movies, and I felt like Aaron Taylor Johnson, for what he was given, did a relatively decent job in the film. I didn't think he was perfect. There was definitely some moments of his that I felt were a little over the top, but we'll kind of get into that later. But overall, Aaron Taylor Johnson probably wouldn't have been the first person I would have said that. Yeah, that's Kraven the Hunter. Like, that's who I would want. But I still feel like he's a quality enough actor that he could have did some great things in this role, if given the right material. So with that being said, I think he was definitely one of the better aspects of the film. And then to kind of piggyback off that, I felt like Russell Crowe was also, at least good and did well with what he was given. He definitely played into a little bit more of the cheesier aspects of this film than Aaron Taylor Johnson did. But I felt like it worked well, and I felt like Russell Crowe did just as good of a job as he possibly could have did. And then one of the things that I was kind of excited for going into this film was that this was the first of the Sony spin-off movies that was rated R. And I felt like, having that R rating did lend and help some of the action scenes that we got in the movie. Obviously, when Kraven is in action, it's very violent and, R rated. And I enjoyed that. I thought it added, a little bit of a flair to the movie that some of these other films have not had. But that is pretty much where my positives end. Everything else about this film to me was pretty much a disaster. One of the main things that I have a problem with this film, and really any of the Sony spin-off movies that we've gotten so far, is that it seems like they film these movies, they have a story and a vision, and then in the post-production process, they completely take the movie and just destroy it and chop it up to bits. Now, I'm not saying that whatever original vision that they have in these movies is ever really going to be all that good, because I just think the concept that they come into these movies with are very flawed and just don't work on a face value. But I don't think we even get the opportunity to see the best versions of this movie, because, and it seems like it's gotten worse as we've gone. Every movie feels, you can just feel where everything it was chopped up and rearranged and redone in post-production. The ADR issue that happened with Madam Web that everybody complained about is like 100 times worse in this movie. I mean, I'm convinced that 85% of this movie was ADR. I mean, there are multiple moments where characters have their heads turned You don't see their faces whatsoever, and they're having full conversations. And then when they turn around and start talking again, you could tell that the dialogue and the way they just sound is completely off. So, that kept happening throughout the entire movie. And it would, just completely pull me out of the movie and make me not interested because I'm like, well, this doesn't. And the way it would sound just wasn't natural. Nothing about it was natural whatsoever. And this might be a conspiracy theory, but I'm pretty sure Sony heard all of the complaints that Madam Web had about the ADR because it was so blatantly obvious in that movie. So I think their resolution in this film, because they had to do the same thing again, and I might be crazy, this wasn't confirmed, I don't think, I haven't seen anything about it, but I'm pretty sure they CGI'd the mouth of certain characters to match up with what we were hearing. They went that far because they botched this movie to hell when, it was supposed to come out a year ago, and then they said, oh, we're going to do, rework it and do reshoots to, make it better, and they just completely botched the entire thing. And you can feel it all over the movie. You can see it when it's happening. And yeah, it was everything about this movie was just such a mess. From the story, the dialogue. Oh my god, the dialogue. I don't understand. Even the scenes where I felt like they were actually in a room together acting. The way the dialogue is delivered by all the actors in this film feels like an alien was directing them to say it. Nothing sounds natural. Nothing sounds normal. It was just the most bizarre choices, writing and dialogue, like directed dialogue that I've ever heard out of actors, at least in a very long time. I mean, there's probably worse out there, but I can't recall in the more recent times just the most like bizarrely weird coaching, and directing from these actors. It was just yeah, I'm kind of, losing words on how to describe it, but it was just very, very strange and really not understandable at all. And then also, too, I just think the story was just very much lacking. There was really nothing to make you care about what's going on, about the characters. The film kind of did a early 2000s comic book cliche where, the movie starts off with an opening scene, action scene. It shows you how Kraven fights and everything like that. And then it immediately cuts to a flashback of the origins of Kraven the Hunter. And this goes on for like 40, 50 minutes. And, we don't even get Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven. This is the younger version of him. And, I just found myself bored during that entire sequence. And by the time we got back to present day and figured out, what exactly the plot of this movie was, we're already over halfway through the film. So the pacing, the way it was edited together, the, direction, the story, all of it just did not work at all for me. I did also see some people say, that this was one of those films that are so bad that it eventually circles around and becomes good. And, maybe it was the fact that there wasn't a lot of people in the theater, that I saw the film at, but I just didn't really agree with that. Yeah, there were some moments that I felt like were so cheesy and delivered in such a way that you couldn't help but laugh. And there were definitely some people who reacted along with me as well in certain moments. But overall, I mean, I didn't have fun with this movie. There really wasn't a lot that was fun about this movie at all. So when I hear people say that, I'm like, yeah, maybe that was their experience, and it was because they went with, a huge group of people and got, maybe a couple drinks in them and got a little rowdy. But for me, I went and saw it by myself. There wasn't a lot of people in the theater, and just it wasn't a great experience. And I'm a Marvel guy. I love Spider-Man. I love all the villains and all the lore of Spider-Man. I mean, shit, we got a great Kraven the Hunter adaptation in the video game last year. So even the character of Kraven, I would love to see a good version done at some point. This just wasn't it, though. As disappointing as that is to say, and pretty much expected. With how these Sony spin-offs have been going, it was just not good. It was just not good. But to kind of wrap up this review, like I said, they did announce that this is the last of these films, at least for now, which I thought was a weird comment to make, but I really kind of hope it is the last. None of these have really worked. None of them have even been true villains, right? I think that's the inherent flaw with all these films is they're trying to take these Spider-Man villains and really just make them into like anti-heroes. And I just don't think that works, And if this whole universe originally started with the idea that's eventually a Spider-Man, whether it was Tom Holland or another version, was going to be in this world and fight these villains, I don't really understand how the approach of the whole anti-hero thing was really going to work because they weren't, none of these people are villains. I mean, literally, Venom, clearly Venom is not a villain. Kraven's really not a villain. Morbius wasn't really a villain. No one in Madam Web was really a villain. So yeah, none of these movies worked, and I don't think any of them are great. The first two were Venom. First two Venom movies were good. I had fun with them, but nothing in this universe has really been great. So I really do hope Sony does not make these films anymore, and we can move on to better things. I know that now the focus is doing another Tom Holland Spider-Man film, the Spider-Man Noir project, and then finishing out the Across the Spider-Verse trilogy, which I don't really understand how the same studio that makes the Spider-Verse movies is the ones that have made these movies. But I guess that's where we're at this point. So yeah, is what it is. Very disappointed, but at least we're kind of turning the page on these films. So that's a positive outlook I have after seeing this film. So yeah, on a rating scale, Kraven the Hunter is going to get a 2 out of 5 for me. I actually think this might be my worst film of the year, if I'm being honest. Even Joker, Folly to Do was pretty bad, but right now I'm kind of feeling that this might have been worse. So I'll sit on that one and we'll see. But yeah, so if you guys have seen Kraven the Hunter or would like to discuss anything relating to this movie or any of the Sony spin-off movies, go ahead and comment. And yeah, everyone have a great night.